Developed by Hello Games and published by Sony, No Man's Sky is an action-adventure sandbox survival game. Released for the PlayStation 4 on August 9th, followed by the PC's release on August 12th, the game was met with mixed to unfavorable reviews pretty much everywhere. On October 1st, 2016, the game won 39% from more than 63,000 Steam users, and a 4.6 out of 10 from more than 4,800 Metacritic users. Prior to its release, however, it was almost a completely different story. The game wasn't hated, it received plenty of coverage that rarely undersold just how expansive the game is. It gained hype, attention, notoriety. Even with managed expectations, it was hard not to get excited. Come release, however, you probably know the story. Hello Games was now at the mercy of the public, and the public showed no mercy. The public wanted their angered and disappointed voices heard. However, Sean Murray and Hello Games gave them nothing but silence for almost 2 years, only broken up by updates trying to deliver the game they advertised before release. Each update softened the blow that Hello Games inflicted on themselves, but none did as much as their next update. On December 7th, 2013, No Man's Sky debuted during Spike VGX to the 1.1 million people who watched. Other games were shown off, such as The Division, Titanfall, Dying Light, and The Witcher 3. Despite most of these games becoming huge successes when they eventually released, No Man's Sky stole the show. Sean Murray of Hello Games said he wanted to build a game that honored the kind of science fiction he enjoyed in his youth, which weren't just action tableaus, but worlds with extremely rich backstories and characters. The game immediately caught the attention of many people, especially with how ambitious the game presented itself. Every atom procedural. If you can see it, you can go there. Entire ecosystems that you didn't dominate, and space combat. It's easy to get excited about something so huge and promising. Just 17 days after its grand debut, No Man's Sky was back in the news. The news wasn't about progress and development or any new features. Instead, it was about a pretty big obstacle. So, our office flooded late on Christmas Eve, Sean Murray wrote in a blog post a few weeks after the tragedy. It was just one of those unlucky things, but it wiped out pretty much everything in there. He then went on to say basically everything was lost and it didn't seem like their insurance would reimburse them. I don't want to say out loud the value of what we lost, it's horrible. It would probably fund a small game. Murray talked about their working conditions being either in a cramped, temporary location or from the employees' homes with eyes set on a new office within a few months. He reassured people that this would not impact No Man's Sky release and gave credit to the team, saying they were unstoppable. Throughout his post, Sean Murray remained optimistic. It's obviously horrible, but it's all part of our little indie journey. Maybe Christmas was a bad time for this to happen, but New Year's couldn't be better for a fresh start. Even when talking about the possibility of a Kickstarter, Sean Murray wrote, "Financially, I guess it'd probably be a really good time for us to do one, and so many people have suggested it. I just don't think it's the right thing for No Man's Sky right now though, and we'd probably rather not eat than do the wrong thing for this game." Electronic Entertainment Expo, or more commonly known as E3, is a huge deal for the video game industry. Developers, publishers, and manufacturers are given the opportunity to talk about what they're working on to not only the press, but its consumers. New games, consoles, and decisions are commonly revealed at the expo along with how development is going on current projects. It was expected that No Man's Sky would show up, and so it did with a 3.5-minute gameplay trailer. It featured colorful terrain, a variety of species ranging in size and build, spaceship combat both in space and planetary. The audience was shown an amazing product that was beginning to show its real promise. After the trailer, Sean Murray talks a bit about the game.
We're going to start every player on a different planet, so no two people will have the same experience. This universe that we've created, it's so vast, it's so boundless, it's actually infinite, and we don't even know what's out there. When the game releases, every player who picks up a pad and plays is going to help us discover a little bit more.
He closes out his portion of the conference with more gameplay, showing more color, features, and promise. In his developer commentary with IGN, Sean mentioned that they had to find that location. None of that was specially made for the demo. This has been a really difficult game to show, I guess, Sean Murray said during his commentary. Like, we had to find this location. We don't build this. This is, like, procedurally built. E3 2014 was when No Man's Sky really blew up. It caught attention at VGX, of course, but E3 was a different event. E3 2014's first day garnered almost 6 million unique daily visitors on Twitch, while VGX drew in just over 1 million viewers in its one-night showing. In fact, E3 2014 broke Twitch's viewership record. It could probably go without saying, but the media ate the game up. A headline from Time magazine read, "This is the most beautiful game you'll see all year." The article stated, Hello Games' upcoming No Man's Sky may be the most promising and gorgeous to watch in action. Another article from Engadget claimed No Man's Sky won E3 in the title, No Man's Sky, the game that won E3 2014. The article focused on the size of the game, especially in comparison to the team making it. Hello Games is an indie studio. There are 10 staffers. 4 of them went dark internally to concept No Man's Sky. They're not scaling up for No Man's Sky either. The game was built around the concept of a small team creating a massive project. An article from Kotaku claimed No Man's Sky won E3 forever. Obviously, it was hard not to get swept up in the excitement and hype that the people were creating. No Man's Sky built a lot of hype in the month of June and continued the train for the next year. In a blog post Sean Murray wrote on the plane back from Gamescom 2014, he goes in-depth with how vast the game really is. We're working to a 64-bit system, which is 2 to the power of 64, or 18 quintillion, 446 quadrillion, 744 trillion, 73 billion, 709 million, 551,616 possible planets. Even if a planet is discovered every second, it'll take 585 billion years to find them all. IGN reported that Sean had said it was originally a 32-bit number, which would put their planet count at 4,294,967,296. The change seemed to have been spurred in part because of forum threads stating No Man's Sky can't actually be infinite, contrary to what Sean Murray had previously stated. In an article from Polygon headlined, No Man's Sky is so big, the developers built space probes to explore for them, it's reported that No Man's Sky is so big, the developers built space probes to explore for them. It was also revealed that not everyone at Hello Games was a fan of procedural generation. The problem that probe is designed to solve is one that hits artists particularly hard. When every atom is procedural, developers must, by definition, lose control. Duncan learned to embrace this, at least in part out of the necessity to create a universe with planets numbering in the quintillions. The decision to give up control wasn't easy. Duncan's now loving embrace of procedurally generated art started as something that existed on the continuum between ambivalence and outright hostility. Perhaps one of the most famous pieces of media to come from the pre-release of No Man's Sky is a video interview conducted by Game Informer. It's a series of 70 questions that span a video just over 6 minutes long. There are 2 important questions asked.
Will you be able to play with your friends?
Yeah.
Do you ever get a good look at your character?
You can see other characters, and they can see you.
However, there were still articles trying to manage the expectations of the public. Hardcore Gamer wrote an article that asked the big question in its headline, Is No Man's Sky destined for mediocrity? The article reminds us of other very promising games that didn't live up to initial expectations, such as Sims 4, Assassin's Creed Unity, NHL 15, and Drive Club. While AAA titles that have to answer to corporate greed may not be the best comparison to an indie-developed game, it was still a cautionary tale to be aware of.
Are you uncomfortable?
Yes.
The time has come again for one of the biggest gaming events of the year. Electronic Entertainment Expo 2015 is here, and Hello Games is present with No Man's Sky again. Hosted in the same location as it was last year, E3 2015 boasted higher attendance. 52,200 people attended and 21 million unique viewers watched E3, peaking at 840,000 concurrent viewers. These numbers crushed the Twitch's previous records of E3 2014. Gamasutra presented interesting data regarding No Man's Sky. In the week of E3 2015, No Man's Sky dominated non-AAA titles with 803 articles featuring the game, roughly a 200 article increase from its E3 2014 presentation. The runner-up was Unravel, with 712 articles. With E3 2015, No Man's Sky was able to show off more of what it's about and talk to the press even more. In its time during Sony's conference, Sean Murray showed off gameplay. It seemed like he was actually playing the game live and letting himself and the audience react to new encounters. The trailer showed off multiple aspects: space combat that the player can choose to take part in, warping from one solar system to another, and discovering a new system, new planet, and new life. A predominant part of the showcase was when Sean Murray went into the galaxy map and zoomed out, revealing the immense scale of the game. The audience reacted in shock and intrigue, getting louder as the zoom out sped up and kept going. Sean warps into a new solar system where he lands on a planet.
As luck would have it, there's no alien life.
He jokes after scanning the planet before demonstrating the ability to destroy anything on the planet. Shortly after this, he is pursued by Sentinels.
They protect the planets from explorers like me.
He jokes before backing up into the water where he exclaims,
And there's fish. There's the V3 fish.
After discovering the new aquatic life, he locates the beacon where he showcases its function, the ability to upload discoveries and receive credits for it. He also shows that Sentinels can be destroyed.
And that's just a little glimpse of No Man's Sky. It's got trading, fighting, exploring, survival, and it's a huge game.
Along with a confirmed PC release, Sean Murray stated that there would be a release date soon, but it wasn't ready yet. It makes sense that the media coverage was up from its original debut. We finally got to see gameplay and what the game has to offer. In an article from The Verge headlined, "I played No Man's Sky and now I'm a believer, I'm also an alien murderer," the author tells us of their time playing the demo. They talked about how they were handed a controller and told to just explore. They landed on a planet, killed an alien, and was chased by Sentinels, which killed them. This whole story takes place over maybe 10 minutes of playtime, they say. If this is what No Man's Sky is, exploring random planets, doing dumb things, and telling your friends about it, I think I'd be very happy. An article from Engadget highlights their own experience with the demo. Titled Minecraft meets Grand Theft Auto 5 in Space, the article compares the beginning and progression to that of Minecraft and the Sentinels to how wanted levels work from GTA 5. The article talks about their experience in it, such as a creature they met and its procedurally generated noises and physique. They marvel at how the planets are actually planet-sized. It closes by saying, "I hardly scratched the surface of No Man's Sky during my 10-minute hands-on demo, but even if I play it every day for 80 years, I'll be able to say the same thing." Journalists, even after a year, still sing praises of the game and its potential. While only a couple of examples were showcased, the reaction was roughly the same. Most of them ogled at the number of things that could be done and what could be discovered. This was a simulated universe that was theirs to conquer. This is the home stretch for Hello Games. They won't attend another E3 from here on out. At this point, they are about a year away from release. From here on out, nothing really new is revealed. A lot of what happens is mostly recap. Unfortunately, there really isn't much to talk about in terms of development. E3 2015 was essentially the final major and new showing of what the game was. A notable thing that happened was Hello Games talking about its lore and world building. They even brought on Dave Gibbons, co-creator of Watchmen from DC, and James Swallow, who had previous work with Star Trek and Deus Ex.
We always kind of say we shouldn't have a story, but we should have a lore. There is a consistent narrative. The things that you see there are there for a reason. If there are buildings, they're there because a certain race built them, and they look like that race has built them. And if you talk to aliens in the game, you'll get little touches of that. If you read some text on a monolith, you'll get, it will be consistent with that. And that's lore to me, that's world building.
Everything was fine right up until almost release, when Reddit user Damien dropped a lot of money, an estimate of about 2,000 times the actual price according to Inverse. 2 weeks before the release of the game, he streamed some of the game for the world to see. After only 30 hours into the game, they claimed to have reached the center of the universe. They also offered a pretty extensive Reddit comment that didn't shine the game in exactly the best light. Contrary to what a lot of people think, I have done a lot of what the game has to offer, the user begins. This does not mean I have done all of the major events. However, I am still yet to swim to the bottom of a big ocean. I am still yet to destroy a space station. I definitely still have stuff to do. The subreddit was split. Some attacked the poster for how they played the game based on his now deleted videos and faulting him for his own experience. Other people took what he said to heart and claimed to have cancelled their pre-orders. No matter what side you were on after this post, it was clear this cut down the hype for the game. 976 days went by from its original debut at Spike VGX on December 7th, 2013 to its release on August 9th, 2016. 976 days for the hype to snowball and eventually become an avalanche. Sean Murray and the media and the people continued to hype the game up, and only a few articles sprouted up reminding the consumer to manage their expectations. According to Steam charts, No Man's Sky peaked at 212,321 people during its release month and had an average of 36,977 players on Steam. Both of these numbers have yet to be topped as of recording. Up until this point, the only voice that was heard was that of the media and one Reddit user just weeks before release. Now, the game was public. Everyone could have a voice, and everyone did. For this part, the general public will take center stage, and how they took the game. Well, they didn't react too well at all. Understandably so. The game that people were continuously shown during its pre-release up until now looked completely different than the one released to the public. There were a lot of features that were talked about and shown off that didn't arrive in the final product. Originally, a post went up in the No Man's Sky subreddit that listed all of the lacking features. However, this list has since been deleted, but another copy is available for viewing on r/games. Gameplay elements such as the ability to land on asteroids, destroying space stations, gigantic fleets, and freighters moving were not present in the game at launch. NPC's influence and interactions were also cut. Large-scale battles that the player can join between factions were gone, along with in-atmosphere battles and the importance of faction affiliations. Planets and space itself were also pretty lacking compared to what was advertised. Ringed planets, sandy planets, and planet orbits were also removed. Among other things, more notable removals were resource spawns depending on distance from the sun, NPCs launching from the ground instead of launching pads, and freighters that move. No feature could have caused as much as a backlash quite like the lack of promised multiplayer. Repeatedly, Sean Murray had said that we will be able to see other players and interact with them. However, the odds of this happening were astronomical. 18 quintillion planets, the sun would die before the entire game could be explored. I warped for the first time today. The star system I landed in was discovered by a user named Cytocat, so I messaged him asking him to meet me at a space station, Reddit user The Galactic Cactus wrote on the day the game came out. We are currently 4 systems away. We will meet at a space station. No one was there. Despite being in the same system, on the same planet, standing at the same exact location, no one was there. About a week later, the original poster edited their post. Since this post is unlocked, I will try to reply to some people now. I've gone from thinking it's a glitch or server issues to defending Hello Games, a company I was very wrong about, and now I'm really neutral. After seeing how much was removed from the game, I lost a lot of faith in them. Now that they're talking about paid DLC, I'm losing even more. Players have now discovered they're subjected to 18 quintillion planets with little variation and no one to even explore with. The game took a nosedive. Hello Games was the butt end of jokes and controversy. Even during its PC launch, just 3 days after its PS4 launch, Hello Games had more to deal with. The PC launch was riddled with crashes and performance issues even on high-end systems. Game distributors like Steam had offered exceptions to the refund policy. Steam's normal refund policy is returning the game within 14 days of purchase with less than 2 hours of playtime. This in itself was a controversy, as some people were able to get a refund even after 70 hours of play, Geek.com reported. Sony also gave No Man's Sky customers an exception with refunding, citing goodwill towards the customer. Despite all of the hate, especially in the Steam reviews and forums, Hello Games remained responsive and diligent. We're pulling an all-nighter to get through as many issues as soon as possible. Please try to be nice, Sean Murray wrote in his Steam forum post, ending it with a smiley face. Murray also addresses common issues and planned fixes. However, shortly after the release of the game, the team went silent. We're totally focused on customer support right now, then we'll move on to improving and adding features to the game, Sean tweeted on August 18th before going silent. For 2 months, there wasn't a single word from the team. Even on their Twitter, there was nothing. This led to speculation that Hello Games was now a skeleton crew, only to release the remaining updates and then disperse. A since-deleted Reddit account commented on a post titled, "If the silence goes on much longer, it's entirely reasonable to assume Hello Games has been shut down, or they've abandoned this project," saying, "It's a relatively safe assumption that the updates currently being released represent the last of them. One, perhaps 2 big official patches before they cease entirely." August 18th was the last tweet made before going completely silent. The tweet to break the silence was an interesting one. On October 28th, 2016, Hello Games' Twitter tweeted out a since-deleted tweet saying, "No Man's Sky was a mistake." The No Man's Sky Twitter broke its uncharacteristic 71 days of silence by saying, "Server hacked. We're binging Mr. Robot episodes as quickly as we can, looking for answers. Episode 05 is a cracker." 2 more tweets were sent out from that Twitter regarding the hack, ending their activity by retweeting the Hello Games Twitter, confirming the hack was taken care of. After the hack, another month went by before Sean Murray tweeted again. Rewind a month prior to this hack, and UK's Advertising Standards Authority is now investigating Hello Games for false advertisement related to No Man's Sky. According to Rock Paper Shotgun, the list the ASA compiled included things such as large-scale space combat, structure shown off, size of creatures, and referenced the store page as a whole. The investigation went on for about a month. On November 30th, Hello Games was cleared of all these charges. Essentially, what the case came down to was procedural generation and the size of the game. 1.1 released on November 27, 2016, under the name Foundation Update. This update added a lot of things, including a hardcore mode and creative mode. As the name would imply, the main focus of the Foundation Update was bases. Now you can build, decorate, find, and claim bases. Additionally, you can now plant crops in hydroponic labs and deploy equipment such as automated harvesters. Along with the grounded bases came mobile bases known as freighters. Players could now build, plant, and store more with these freighters. NPCs were also now able to be recruited with the new recruitment system. Freighters were purchasable and could travel the galaxy with the player. More resources, including biome-specific resources, were added along with new technologies and a better user interface. Quality of life improvements included inventory stacking, the addition of a quick menu, clear degradation arrows added to shield and life support, and many more changes helped improve the game. Motion blur and temporal anti-aliasing were also added at this time. According to Steam charts, the month of November peaked at 8,090 concurrent players and 901 average players, followed by the month of December, which showed a peak of 6,498 concurrent players, but boasted a higher average number of players at 2,145. While those numbers may not seem great for a game that was so hyped, it was pretty good compared to October's numbers of 2,172 peak players and 775 average players on Steam. After the initial release of 1.1, there were 2 more updates that came on the 7th and 12th of December. After the last update, there wouldn't be another update for almost 4 months. On March 8th, 2017, No Man's Sky entered into its 1.2 patch, otherwise known as the Pathfinder update. This update brought a bunch of changes. Notably, it ushered in higher graphics, horizon-based ambient occlusion, high contrast light effects, and more visual-based improvements. PS4 Pro support was enabled, so now players can experience the game in 4K. Additionally, players can now upload their created bases so other players can discover and explore them. With Steam Workshop, the bases can be directly uploaded there to make it easier for Steam users to explore bases. Ships were improved as well. Players can now own multiple ships, and actual ship types were added. Fighter, shuttle, hauler, and explorer ships were added, and each had their own specializations. Along with these specializations and brand new technology, 4 different ship classes were added. A, B, C, and the rare S classes were included in the Pathfinder update. Multi-tools got the same treatment as well. A new vehicle type was added called exocrafts, which were used to traverse the ground. A new currency, nanite clusters, were added along with new shops and traders in space stations and bases. Base building was also expanded, and the variety for base building was more than doubled, which included new pieces, decals, and materials. NPC factions and your standings were now more functional. Each faction could now offer a specific type of technology. Viking, Korvac, and Gek traded for multi-tool, exosuit, and ship technology, respectively. Additionally, your standings with each faction determined what sort of technology they'll offer you. The higher the standing, the better your options would be. More things were added, like a permadeath mode, photo mode, the ability to rename vehicles and bases, a mission log, which allowed players to keep track of multiple quests, and an improved discovery menu. Looking at Steam charts again shows another boost in player numbers for the month of March 2017. The month prior recorded a peak of 1,097 players and an average of 508. March 2017 showed a peak of 7,023 players and an average of 1,806 on Steam. That's a pretty significant jump. Following this release, there would be 3 more patches, the final one being 1.24 on March 27, 2017. Update 1.3, named Atlas Rises, was released on August 11, 2017, 5 months after 1.24. This update marked the 1-year anniversary of the game releasing. A lot of changes and new things were added, starting with the story. The Atlas Rises storyline ushered in 30 hours of new content, which doubled the existing lore and interactions in-game. The galaxy as a whole was overhauled so that now each star system had its own wealth, economy, and conflict. Variety and visuals of planetary biomes was improved, along with additional exotic planets to explore. Players could now find crashed freighters on planets that could yield buried resources or be used to complete the brand new salvage missions, which were added with the new mission system. Players could visit mission agents and pick up a generated mission that would fit their playstyle. These missions would improve your standing with the newly added NPC guilds. Building your standing with these guilds would unlock harder but more rewarding missions. Trading was given more depth with this update. Star systems now had economic strengths and weaknesses. Players can now engage in what is essentially an intergalactic stock market, buy goods at a low price, and find another system to sell them at a higher price. New trade goods were added along with a tiered crafting system. The analysis visor saw a recalibration as well. Scanning a resource before mining it could show an alternative resource. The analysis visor now showed more about each discovery, and scanning flora and fauna now gave increased rewards. The analysis visor was now upgradable. Along with all of this, the multi-tool was now given an enhancement that could edit the terrain of a planet. The mission log was expanded to show pending missions and choose which to track. The discovery page gave a better view of your journey and discoveries. An in-game guide was added, and the Journey Milestone tab was updated to show guild-specific progress and milestones. Multiple environmental props and assets were improved and given higher quality textures. Depth of field was also added as an option for photo mode and NPC interactions. Ancient portals were added, which could be unlocked by a combination of glyphs. Based on the combination of glyphs used, the portal leads to a specific planet or point of interest. Ships were given more improvements. Players could now summon their ships from anywhere. Class S ships got new designs, and wealthier systems offered higher class ships. Flight controls were improved, which made in-atmosphere dogfighting more exciting and allowed low flight to let pilots fly above the terrain. These improvements also carried into space and improved spaceflight and combat. Maneuverability was improved, which brought more skill to dogfighting. The enemy AI was overhauled, making them more difficult. A new HUD was added to spaceships to improve space combat experiences. Rockets were also added to be used in combat. Finally, joint exploration was added. Described as glitches in the simulation, up to 16 players could see, communicate, and explore the galaxy with each other in the form of floating orbs. Communication was limited to proximity-based voice chat. As a result to such a massive update, Steam charts showed impressive numbers. August 27th showed a peak of 19,017 players and an average of 4,896 players. This was the highest numbers a month had seen since the release of the game on Steam. Even the month after the game's release showed only half of August 2017's numbers. Following the release of 1.3, 7 more patch notes were sent out. 1.38 went live on October 3rd, 2017 for PC, and then on PS4 3 days later. On July 24th, 2018, almost an entire year after the Atlas Rises update, No Man's Sky received its most critical and influential update, named Next. The update spanned both versions 1.5 and 1.6 of the game. This was the update that put the game on Xbox. The most prominent change from Next, and perhaps any update, was the inclusion of multiplayer. While it was vaguely present in Atlas Rises as floating orbs, Next fully implemented it. Now, players could play the game with other people. As a group, they could build, explore, progress through the story, do missions, and communicate over voice chat or text. Community engagement became a focus as Next also introduced community events shortly after its release. It was free for all players, and these community events and missions would offer rewards and customizations. Next also marked the launch of the Galactic Atlas website, showing a map of the Euclid Galaxy in the game. The website marked regional hubs a player could visit, including the glyph combination to get there via portal. The website also showed discovery statistics and community events. Players were now given more creative freedom and expression. Third person was added, so now players could switch between two perspectives. They could now express to other players through in-game gestures. An appearance customizer was added, so now the player could personalize their appearance. They could play as any of the races in the game and change the color of their suit pieces. Base building was once again expanded on, almost near limitless. Hundreds of new base parts were added. Bases could now be built anywhere on the planet. The size and complexity of bases were drastically increased, multiple bases could be owned across entire star systems, and the terrain manipulator was improved. Teleporters could now be built anywhere on a planet's surface as well. Freighters were enhanced with the inclusion of frigates. Frigates could specialize in combat, exploration, trade, industry, or support, and could be sent out on real-time missions. These fleets of frigates could be called on to help in space battles or sent to explore a star system. Freighter base building was improved as well. To increase consistency and realism, all core resources were rebalanced. Planetary resources were expanded with substances and items to find and refine depending on the planet's biome, weather, and stellar classification. Deployable technology could also be picked up and carried in players' inventories. Buildable refiners were added, which deepened crafting. New technology was added to exosuits, multi-tools, and starships. The new technology was procedurally generated and offered stat boosts depending on class. The analysis visor was once again enhanced with the inclusion of coordinates on a planet, setting markers, and the ability to locate resources and buried items. The beginning section of the game was completely overhauled, bringing in new story elements and showing off more advanced gameplay features. Envoys in space stations now offered rewards and tributes to players who ranked high enough in their respective guilds. Mission types were expanded as well to include things such as photography, feeding, freighter attack and defense, archaeology, and hunting missions. Graphics were tweaked and drastically enhanced. Draw distance and overall visuals were improved. Planetary generation was improved to offer more varied environments with higher mountains and more traversable cave systems. From orbit, planet surfaces appeared more interesting and were more accurately representative. Color palette variety, dense forests, large trees, and abandoned or empty systems were added to add more diversity to the galaxy. Hazardous storms now looked more dramatic with new biome-specific particle effects. Ships, NPCs, and building textures were given significantly more detail. Space visuals were improved and planets could now have rings. The UI was given an overhaul. The HUD was changed so it was more readable and less intrusive overall. The visual location of elements were better prioritized to emphasize more critical information. The build menu and quick menu were given quality of life improvements to be more efficient. Inventory stacks could now be split. Players who owned freighters could summon their fleet at any time. Players who wanted to salvage and repair damaged ships and multi-tools could now repair them by getting the right materials and fixing the damaged slots. Buried ruins were added, so now players could dig them up to find treasure using the terrain manipulator. This tool can also unearth buried technology modules that can be used with the blueprint analyzer to unlock more base components. Creature AI and animations were changed and improved, making them seem more natural and intelligent. Some creature types will herd together and move together in said herd. Creatures will respond more enthusiastically when fed by seeing you as a friend and alerting other creatures of the food source. Creatures and NPCs were given updated and more diverse sounds and voices. New hazardous flora and fauna were also added. Sentinel behavior and animations were improved. Players can now fight them or flee from them between waves of reinforcements to avoid drone scans and be searched. Finally, the signal booster was changed, so if given navigational data, it would be able to find a structure on the planet you're on. According to Steam charts, Next did more for the game than any post-release update to date. Up until this point, the highest peak the game saw after the launch month was just over 19,000 players from the Atlas Rises update. In July 2018, No Man's Sky saw a peak of 96,954 players. The month before saw a peak of just over 2,000 players. July's average player count skyrocketed to 14,555 players. Even the next month boasted insanely high numbers. August 2018 peaked at 83,156 players and saw the second highest average monthly players since launch at 28,038 players. These weren't just short-term effects either. Before Next, average monthly players were often in the hundreds, dropping as low as 508 players. Since Next, the game has seen an average of at least 2,000 players, with the lowest monthly players being 2,052 players. After the initial release of 1.5, 15 patches were released, finishing with 1.65 on October 19, 2018. Just 10 days after 1.65, the game received Update 1.7, also known as Abyss. As the name would imply, this update was focused on the water of the game. New visual improvements were added which allowed the player to explore underwater with even greater detail. With these visual improvements came more variety and better visual quality in underwater biomes. Controls were also improved for underwater navigation, offering underwater gestures, underwater jetpack use, and easier surface swimming. Underwater creatures were now more common and more interesting. Exploring the seabed could yield crystallized sulfur, living pearls, or hadal cores, but were now protected by territorial creatures such as poisonous jellyfish, snapping clams, fish that could be larger than starships, or the abyssal horror. The oceans now had a story to explore called The Dreams of the Deep. The player is given the opportunity to discover the fate of a crashed freighter's crew from rising tides, or explore underwater ruins and learn about a lost soul that's trapped beneath the ocean's waves. Submerged structures can now be found for the player to explore and scavenge. Cargo from freighters could be found in these underwater buildings, along with rare starships to repair and treasures. As expected, a submarine vehicle was added. A new exocraft named the Nautilon allowed the player to navigate, mine, and fight underwater. Like the rest of the exocrafts, the Nautilon could be customized in both appearance and installable technology. Along with the submarine came another piece of headwear called the Lost Bathysphere. Submersible base parts were added, including the marine shelter. Base pieces included glass corridors, viewing bays, and submersible view domes, along with an indoor aquarium. A vehicle shop was added to space stations, along with enhancements to freighters and frigates. Freighters and frigates could now be scanned with the analysis visor, and frigates could now be repaired by other people in multiplayer. Patch 1.71 was released on November 2nd across all 3 platforms. 20 days after 1.71, No Man's Sky was updated to 1.75, also known as Visions. This update, while focused on biomes and visuals, brought quite a bit. Anomalous biomes and creatures were added, meant to create a weirder and more diverse experience. More shades of grass and skies were added to create a more alien and vibrant look. New types of water were added as well. Stormy weathers could now produce rainbows, and exotic planets can now yield objects to be brought back to the player's base as trophies. Planets were also given archaeology and bones to be dug up, along with salvageable scrap from crashed satellites that might bring the attention of corrupted Sentinel drones. Exploring extreme planets can bring crystals that can be sold for a small fortune. Crashed freighters were also given variants. Flora and fauna also saw a touching up. New hazardous flora was added, including bloated gas flora and trap plants. Minerals could now be sentient and run away if shot with a mining beam. More things, such as shared community research missions, were added, along with an unlockable helmet, emotes, building parts, and fireworks. It's hard to say just how much attention these updates brought. Of course, nothing could top what Next did for the game, but Steam Charts doesn't show any growth between the month of September and October. In fact, it shows a pretty substantial loss in players. While September peaked at 15,100 players and averaged out to 5,911, October peaked at 6,291 players and averaged out to 3,079 players. November, however, showed an uptick, possibly because the update came out in late October. November peaked at 8,569 people and had an average of 3,834 players. 2 more patches were released after 1.75, finishing on December 13th, 2018 at version 1.77. After the release of the game, there were 2 years where no one at Hello Games talked to the press. Finally, when Next was announced, that silence was ended. Well, in the short of it, Sean Murray talked about things that were too early in development. When it started, he didn't get why AAA spokespersons stuck to scripts, but he's come to realize why and now uses scripts. We definitely messed up a whole bunch of communication. I've never liked talking to the press. I didn't enjoy it when I had to do it, and when I did it, I was naive and overly excited about my game, Sean Murray told The Guardian. There are a lot of things around launch that I regret, or that I would do differently. Sean Murray also offered insight into what it was like to release such a controversial game to such a large awaiting audience. The internet is really good at knowing when somebody has made a mistake. I remember getting a death threat about the fact that there were butterflies in our original trailer, but there weren't any butterflies in the launch game. I remember thinking to myself, maybe when you're sending a death threat about butterflies in a game, you might be the bad guy, he told The Guardian. Hello Games had to deal with death threats, bomb threats, and overall harassment. In the same interview, Sean Murray talks about how he dealt with the criticism. I basically just get my head down and I work, and I avoid. I just focus on making games, making cool, creative things, and that's an outlet for me. I think the team just wanted to do that. Finally, in an interview with Eurogamer, he talked about the refunds and why the updates continued. You guys were writing stories about there being massive refund rates, and that's not true. Our numbers were slightly above average on PC, but that's par for the course when you have a game that sells a lot of copies and people play it on min-spec machines, below min-spec machines. They were way under the average on PS4, Sean Murray said. We're not doing it altruistically. You can see when our updates come out. We go to the top of the Steam charts. Our numbers go up the same as it would for any big title. I'm not saying there's no story, but you give me too much credit by saying we stuck with the game out of altruism. No Man's Sky was a game that came out and seemed to be hated everywhere anyone looked. For 2 years, the game was synonymous with disappointment and unmet expectations. All of that seemed to have changed with one update, No Man's Sky Next. Now it's viewed in almost a completely different light. No Man's Sky might not be the game it is today without its launch. It serves as a symbol of persistence, dedication, and labor of love. Games aren't restricted to what they are whenever they first come out. First impressions count, but what comes after is just as important. Thank you for watching. I've been Vinyl Sprackle, and until next time, farewell.